Hey guys, welcome back to the course, and today we're going to be talking about finding your perfect niche. Firstly, yes, you do need a niche, which just means a specialized segment of the market. Another way to think about your niche is what's your elevator pitch for your channel if someone asks, what's your channel about? Your niche is your one sentence answer. So, I make blank. The reason this is so crucial is it's so much harder to grow without a niche if you're just uploading videos on any random topic that pops into your head. If one video you're talking about fitness, the next it's sewing, then marketing, you don't really build an engaged following because someone may subscribe for the fitness videos, but then have zero interest in the other topics you talk about. People don't understand your channel, and neither does the YouTube algorithm, so it's never sure who to push your videos to. In fact, here's what YouTube themselves have said on the topic. Connect with communities of interest. When creators first start out, many assume that it's best to make their videos appeal to the broadest audience possible. However, we've seen creators find success by tapping into smaller, passionate niche community. These niches vary in size from huge communities, like those who play the game Fortnite, to smaller communities like antique car collectors. Groups like these are seldom served by traditional media, so they're usually more enthusiastic when they find a show tailored to their interests. And this enthusiasm can lead to more views, watch time, and engagement. Viewers feel they found a show specifically made for them. Personally, one of my biggest mistakes when starting out was that I didn't have a clearly defined niche. I couldn't articulate exactly what I was offering. I was trying to cover as many different things as possible, as I thought that was the way I was appealing to more people, but actually it meant YouTube didn't know who to show my content to, and the audience wasn't sure what they were subscribing for. By trying to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. So it can actually be very effective to niche down a lot at the beginning and get even more specific and narrowly focused about what it is you offer. That way you become a big fish in a smaller pond and become known for something specific. For example, a sports channel is so vague and there's so much competition. But tennis documentaries are something much more niche where you can actually become the best in your small category and stand out. Over time, you can gradually expand your niche if you want by branching out into related but broader topics, but audiences should associate you with something specific. How to pick a niche. My philosophy when it comes to selecting a niche can basically be summed up by the Japanese concept of ikigai. And yes, your math teacher was right all along, it is worth knowing what a Venn diagram is. This just means finding the intersection between what the world needs, which is what the audience wants to watch, what you love, what you enjoy talking and learning about, what you're good at, what you can actually talk about, and what you can be paid for, which is what you can make money from. If you find something in the middle of all those categories, you're onto a winner. But to simplify this even further, we're basically just looking for something you genuinely want to make and other people also want to watch. Because even if you're not yet that good or knowledgeable at this specific topic, if you love it, you'll become better at it by doing the channel. And even if you're not sure if you can be paid for it, as long as people want to watch your videos, there'll be a way to monetize it. So focusing on the overlap between what you're excited to make and what others want to watch is the main starting point for finding your niche. This is really crucial, but it's typically overlooked. Most advice when it comes to finding a niche, especially with faceless channels, seems to revolve around finding some gap in the market and analyzing it with data. But the brutal reality is that you don't want to be successful doing something you don't like. You'll eventually be miserable. The good news is there are endless possibilities. To name just a few: space, philosophy, crime, sports, tech, cars, travel, anime, chess, horror, history, psychology, business, finance, spirituality, religion, animals, stories, influencers, cooking. I truly believe any niche can work. There is no singular best niche or secret niche. There are just different niches, each with their own upsides and downsides. So asking what's the best niche is the wrong question to ask, as it's subjective. The question is, what are the best niches for you? And the reason I believe you should focus on making content you're actually interested in and that you like is because it will mean you make better and more unique content. Audiences feel when there's some genuine enthusiasm behind the content. You'll go the extra mile to make the videos good and accurate. You'll spend the extra time to find the right music or fix mistakes. And the audience can tell. That's what makes the channel better and starts to give you a moat that can't easily be copied. Now, that's only half the equation. You have to like it, but there has to be audience demand as well. And we'll cover some important considerations shortly. But I want to stress, I didn't pick business stories because I did some complex analysis of the niche and reviewed all the data. I chose it because in my free time, I was reading business biographies and learning about the stories behind companies and entrepreneurs. I was genuinely interested in it. That was the starting point, and then I started thinking about how viable it was to make money from, not the other way around. Most people seem to be doing it in reverse, and picking niches they know absolutely nothing about and don't remotely care about. And whilst it is possible to succeed by doing this, you're making it so much harder than it needs to be, and so much less enjoyable. If your goal is to build a genuinely high quality channel for the long term, part of your competitive advantage is going to be that you actually care about the content you're making. For example, so many people now try to copy Magnate's media exactly, but you can tell they're doing it because they think it's a good niche and not because they actually care about the topic. As the content is so much lower effort, it's got loads of mistakes, and it feels like something that's being churned out rather than made by a creator who wanted to make that video. As a result, they don't perform as well. Or I'll give you a totally different example. There's a channel called Exerbia, which makes these beautiful but crazy philosophical essays and stories. The creator has a huge audience, he sells books through his channel, and so you may go, oh, that's a good niche. But if you try to compete by doing something similar when you have zero interest in this topic, it's gonna suck. Same with any high quality channels. James Janney, Let Me Know, Johnny Harris. The creator cares about the content and has genuine interest in what they're making, which is why it doesn't feel like some soulless content farm. So, to summarize, start by focusing on what content you actually want to make and what excites you personally, or that you have knowledge on. And to be clear, I'm not saying this in a cheesy follow your passion kind of way. I'm saying you'll make more money, because that's going to make it more fun for you, which in turn will lead you to making better content, which is win-win for both you and your audience. I prefer this approach because if your only reason for choosing a niche is that not many others are doing it, that won't last long, as if you get some success, others will copy you. This is why so many supposed YouTube gurus can't even share their channels publicly. But in my view, that's not a sustainable business model. Pick a niche where you have an unfair advantage because of your prior interest and knowledge. Okay, I'm going to give you a bunch of idea prompts that will hopefully spark an idea of what your niche could be. So, what feels fun to you, but looks like work to others? What topics do you want to research right now? What subjects could you happily talk about for hours? What subjects do you light up about when it comes up in conversation? What do you enjoy doing? What do you spend a lot of your free time on? What would you most like to learn about? What do you want to become great at? What are the themes of the YouTube channels you watch most? What hobbies, interests, or topics do you enjoy the most? What area of life do you wish you could spend more time on? What topics come up most in your browser, search, or watch history? What comes naturally to you? If your friends or family were asked, what would they say are your best talents or skills? When people have asked you for help in the past, what have they been asking for help with? What are you better at than the majority of people? What gives you energy? If you had to do a 30-minute presentation right now on any topic completely unprepared, what topic would you choose that you could talk about easily? What do you want to see more of in the world? What makes you different? What have you always been drawn to? What type of books are you reading? What do you enjoy learning about and researching? If you didn't have to worry about money, how would you spend your time? What are the research rabbit holes you go down for free out of your own personal interest? What topics do you consume already and would like to learn more about? These are just some prompts to get you thinking about potential ideas. At this stage, we just want a bunch of rough ideas. We'll start narrowing it down into an actual channel idea a little later. Examples and inspiration. You really can make content about anything. Now, when it comes to big personal brand creators, you probably don't need me to give you examples as you already have your favorite creators. However, when it comes to faceless channels, here are some random examples to demonstrate just some of what's already out there and give you some inspiration. I'm not going to read this entire list out, but if you download the PDF underneath this training, you'll be able to see this full list and click on all the links. But just to name a few here, we've got facts and stories channels, we've got nostalgia channels, we've got philosophy, inventions and gadgets, comedy, historical stories, sports news, wrestling, gaming, travel, cars. The list is endless, so you really can make videos about whatever you want. This list has a wide range of types of content and quality levels. Some of these make pretty simple videos, others are individual creators making incredibly premium videos, but all of them are having some success. And I guarantee if you think of almost any topic, there'll be a channel based around that. There are channels making thousands from posting wild SpongeBob theories. There really is no limit on what you can do with YouTube. However, your niche is not just what your videos are about, but also the formula, presentation style, and video format. In other words, the way the video idea is executed. For example, business is a niche, but my channel Magnate's Media is mostly business documentaries and stories, versus someone like Alex Hormozy, whose videos are primarily business advice. Likewise, Graham Stephan in the finance niche is giving advice on camera, which is very different to a channel like this making finance documentaries. So, one of the first big decisions for you if you're starting a new channel will be if you're going to go the more traditional creator route and be on screen yourself, or go the faceless channel route. Both have their pros and cons, which we'll look at later in this course, but either way, these lessons will work and the principles are the same. let's talk about why niches aren't too saturated and how to stand out. So there's a bit of a hot take, but I don't think any niche is too saturated. Only low effort content is. You can still succeed in a popular niche if you bring something fresh, different, or better. With the skills in this course you'll learn, like writing great stories, editing great videos, crafting clickable titles, you can outperform what's currently happening in any niche by making superior content. Even in a niche where there's already someone making amazing content, there's always a way to put a new spin on things that some of the audience will prefer. Because everyone has different tastes, so there's room for different styles, perspectives, and formats. And so you can actually argue that if there's a lot of channels in a niche, it's just evidence there's demand for that. You just need to offer something unique. One of the best ways to come up with something fresh for the niche you want to pursue is simply by bringing in ideas from other niches. For example, First We Feast combined interviews and challenges together to get hot wings. Or for example, you likely bought this course as you're familiar with my content on Magnates Media. So you could simply ask, what subject could you make stories or documentaries or video essays about in a similar way? You can be the Magnates Media of X niche. Like making videos in a similar style as me, but for true crime or geopolitics or literally whatever you're interested in. If you're super into artificial intelligence right now, why not make documentaries about it? We already mentioned some other channels going this high quality documentary style route, like James Janney, Let Me Know, Johnny Harris. But just to name a few more, there's Fern, Cold Fusion, Polymatter, Wendover Productions, Josh Brett, Neo. And so if there's something you like about these channels, or indeed any other channel, consider if there's elements you could bring in from them to your own niche to stand out from what people are currently doing. There's always a way to do things in a new or better way. This allows you to essentially create your own new mini category within the niche. This is often called blue ocean strategy, as rather than competing directly, you're crafting your own empty corner of the niche where you're a little different to what anyone else is offering, so there's no identical competitors. And there are a lot of ways to stand out like this. It could be aiming your content at a different audience to what other people in your niche do, packaging your ideas differently, using different humor, explaining things in different ways, using different visual styles, presenting and pacing things differently, having a different tone to the video, speaking differently, bringing your own personality in, editing differently, and so many more ways to put a new spin on things. When I started Magnates Media, business stories were not new, it was just the way I did things was different. The reason most people don't succeed is they just copy what's working and do a worse version. So of course they're never going to be able to compete with the biggest players in the niche who are already established, as the audience has no reason to watch this new content instead. Now, don't worry, it's normal at the beginning to copy a bit too closely to someone else while you try and find your own style. But just be aware that to become a big channel, you need to find your own thing. So don't just try to clone the channel you like in a niche, study what's working elsewhere outside of your niche and draw inspiration from there. And that way, you can find your own way to stand out, even in a crowded niche. Again, I repeat, there's always a way to do things in a new or unique or better way. Criteria to consider when choosing your niche. Hopefully by this point, you've already got some ideas on what your niche could be. But what criteria should you consider to make a final decision? Number 1, do you enjoy it? We've covered this a lot already, but it's so important to make content you're interested in to avoid burnout in the long run. Even if you're planning on having a team to help you make the content, you're still going to be involved. So I want you to wake up feeling excited about what you're making. YouTube is a long game, you want to enjoy it. As if you try to pick a niche purely for views and money, you're probably going to lose to someone who does like the topic. Because your content will be filled with errors and you won't even understand what you're posting about and you'll have no pride in your work. Whereas if you like what you make, you'll gladly go the extra mile or stay up late making little fixes, which takes your content to a much higher level. Number 2, are you good or knowledgeable about it? This is especially important if you're making more educational content, as this will give you more credibility and an unfair advantage. Number 3, can you make enough money from it? One of the first considerations should be the business potential of each idea, meaning are there products or services you could potentially sell related to this niche? For example, if you have items on your niche shortlist like nutrition, productivity, marketing, dating, these are all great because common sense tells us lots of people would absolutely be interested in learning more about these topics, both through free videos and eventually through paid products and services you could create, such as a coaching program or a course or system you sell. Any content that's going to have an impact on someone's life is typically more easy to monetize. So consider what type of person you're going to be making content for and what products and services you could potentially sell them. However, if your niche is something where you can't think of any product or service related to it that you could eventually sell, that means you're going to be relying more on ad revenue and sponsors, which isn't necessarily a problem. But if that's the case, you're going to want to do some research on the average RPM for your niche, which just means how much YouTube will pay you per 1,000 views, as different niches will earn different amounts. You can do some research on your niche to find some estimates, or maybe even find creators in your niche who've shared their RPM publicly. However, there are a lot of factors that go into RPM, so this is never going to be fully accurate. It's also worth noting that to calculate earnings, the equation is RPM times number of views. So even if the niche has a lower RPM, that might still be fine if it's something that can get a huge number of views. The fourth consideration: can you bring something new or better than competitors? This is where it's time to do some niche research and find out who the competitors are. That way you can understand how high the current level of content is and whether you think you can beat it by making something better or find a new angle to bring something fresh. A great way to do this is simply create a fresh YouTube account and start searching for videos in your niche. The algorithm will then start recommending you related channels in the suggested bar on the side. You can then make a list of all the different channels and analyze what they're doing well and what's working, but also where there's room for improvement. There's also two great tools for analyzing competitor channels, which are viewstats.com and socialblade.com. This will give you some really useful information on the different channels. Number 5, is the niche too narrow? Is there enough demand? It's important to remember that if you want to be getting hundreds of thousands of views on your videos, there needs to be hundreds of thousands of people interested in watching these kind of videos. If you'd struggle to list out 20 video ideas for your niche right now, you've probably gone too narrow. But on the flip side, number 6, is the niche too broad? For example, if you've just written health, that's probably a little too broad. Remember, to stand out, we generally want to be the specialist, not the generalist. So can you break that down further into sub-niches to decide which should be your main focus? For example, weight loss, building muscle, nutrition, yoga, etc. Consideration number 7. Is it safe for YouTube? We want to align what we're making with what the platform actually wants. Unless you have a lot of experience with this, try to avoid niches that have a high chance of infringing on YouTube's policy or ad safety guidelines, as then you're going to be facing an uphill battle by getting regularly demonetized. For example, don't make R-rated content, like adult or overly explicit topics or anything extremely violent. Don't make content that relies heavily on copyrighted material, especially certain sports where the copyright policies are much stricter. So do some research on how prevalent copyright claims are for your specific idea if you're unsure about this. For example though, showing football clips generally leads to copyright claims. Don't make content that's going to be overly offensive and could be classed as breaking any of YouTube's rules or advertiser guidelines, like covering sensitive events. And don't make content that's going to fail YouTube's reused content policy, like compilation channels or low-effort AI videos. The things I've mentioned here are the main areas to watch out for, but it's worth actually reading through YouTube's policies just to ensure what you're planning to make isn't going to be a problem. Okay, next actions. Step 1 is to brainstorm as many different ideas as you can using the prompts we covered. Step 2 is to rank the ideas based on the criteria we just covered. Circle any items that you feel hit most of the criteria, which is going to mean that you have ideas that are aligned with Ikigai. You like it, you're good enough at it, there's demand for it, and there's a way to make money from it. That's the sweet spot. If it's hitting all of those, it clearly has real potential to be your niche. And finally, step 3, make a final decision. Don't delay it. It's no use watching this training and then moving on to the rest of the course until you decide on what you're going to make videos about. Many people get paralyzed by options, but just need to start something. Picking the niche that aligns with most of the criteria we laid out is the obvious choice, but I would also recommend you trust your gut instinct if there's one particular niche you're drawn to and really want to focus on. Ultimately, when you can align what you want to make with what the audience wants, and what you have some expertise in and can monetize, that's an incredibly powerful combination. So hopefully this training has given you enough to think about that you can decide on your niche, and then let's move on with the rest of the course. I'll see you in the next training.